I've had this story on my mind for a while, and this is my neighbor, Brantley.
Hey there.
And I wanted to bring him on because this story involves siblings. And I don't have siblings, so I wanted to bring someone who has a sibling, especially you're the older one, right? So you have
I'm younger.
Oh, you're younger.
Yeah,
This is going to be a very interesting perspective now. This involves me and some of my friends' childhood and the fact that my friend had 2 younger siblings. So bring you through the world I grew up in middle school. So middle school, I was technically in sort of like low-income apartment.
Yeah.
The elementary school was about a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
To get to the elementary school, we had to walk through like a really, really, really rich neighborhood.
Yeah.
So this was the summer. We would go play basketball. And exactly, you're a basketball player. Yeah.
I mean, well, I was working for that basketball starter.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
So I'm a fan of basketball. Sports bring people together.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fun.
And I was not a good basketball player, but again, sports brings people together.
Totally, yeah.
And so I would play basketball with my friends. Obviously, they were better than me. So my friend had 2 little brothers. One little brother was in elementary school, late elementary school. One little brother was starting elementary school.
Yep.
So that day, I think a bunch of us met up at the basketball courts in elementary school. After we played, it was just me, my friend, and his 2 little brothers walking home.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the environment. We're very out of place walking through this rich neighborhood, right? But we have to walk through this rich neighborhood to get to our home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we played basketball for like a few hours. So by the time we're walking home, it was already dark.
You ever take souvenirs along the way, like a little Jaguar hood ornament or anything?
Thank goodness I was never like that. But yes, I could imagine the draw, right? Because I've seen a lot of those cars, even when I was in middle school, where like their Jaguar things were missing. Yes.
Yeah.
So, dribbling our balls, we're walking along, and we're talking, having fun, we just play basketball, and it's very dark. We step on this one lawn accidentally, because again, it's right next to the sidewalk.
Totally.
Actually, most of that neighborhood had no sidewalk, because, it's that type of neighborhood.
Yes,
so,
right. The old, fancier neighborhood. Yeah.
So, we're stepping on the lawn, because usually there would be a sidewalk.
Right.
Out of nowhere, this black dog charges at us, like... And it was so scary. So immediately we start running. Running. My friend's little brother trips over himself. Thank goodness he sticks his hand out so he doesn't fall on his face.
Okay.
But he still hurts his hand.
So
We help him up. We're about to keep running, but then we're like, okay, let's like center ourselves a little. We look back, the dog's not chasing us anymore.
Great. Did they have an electric fence?
That's the thing. I think they did. But back then that stuff was new, right?
Totally, yeah, it was new. Not everybody had it. Yeah. Sometimes you had the flag, sometimes not.
And I think it might have had a flag, but the thing is, it was so dark at night, we didn't see.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
and the dog came from nowhere.
Totally, yeah.
So as I help my friend up and his little brother helps him up, we're like, where's my friend? As in, where's the big brother? Where's my friend?
Yeah.
So we're like, where'd he go? And then we're walking around trying to get home, and then eventually we find my friend, the big brother. I'm telling you the story, and why this story, as an adult, I think it's so screwed up, is the dog came charging at us, and in a moment of panic, not only does my friend ditch me, he ditches his 2 brothers with me. He runs in a completely different direction. I get, the dog was charging at us. It was really scary.
Right.
But, he ditched his 2 little brothers.
Well, two things could be going on, right? It's like you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than your friend, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's one argument, right? But then the other argument is you don't want to split off, right? Because it seems like you'd want to stay with the group in general, right?
And he ditched the group, me and his 2 little brothers, very like a team, like a basketball team. We went running one way. You knew we had each other's backs. Yeah. But the guy who was the oldest, my friend, didn't have her backs. He ran the other direction, bro. And I was thinking about this story. I was like, how could I tell it? But and that's why I wanted to bring Brantley, because he has siblings. So would you ever ditch your siblings in a situation like that?
Well, my brother and I probably butted heads a little bit more, so perhaps so.
Okay, so that's why I bring him on.
But at the same time, I was 4 years younger, so if there was some scary situation, maybe I would have tagged along. I don't know.
Because you're the little brother, would you have expected your big brother to take care of you in a situation like that? A dog's charging at you, your brother kind of drags your hand. Let's run this way. Would you have expected him to do that?
Well, my brother and I, we were appropriately contentious siblings, so we didn't hang out necessarily a ton, but I think there was one time where we were on one of those like go-kart tracks or something, and he said he was trying to like protect me from like getting hit by the other car. So I thought that was like pretty nice. But other than that, we were usually like butting heads as siblings do.
Yeah.
We're like 4 or 5 years apart.
My friend and his middle brother were about 4 or 5 years apart. So that's like the perfect age range. And obviously they were at each other's heads a lot too. But I would expect usually in situations like, I don't know, maybe I'm just naive because again, I grew up an only child, but I would expect the big brother to, obviously the first thing is protect himself, but the second thing is, okay, where did my brothers go? But like, it's just like, he just ran off and then like eventually we found him, but it wasn't like he ran off and then he's like trying to figure out where his little brother. I mean, this is total interpretation. Maybe he trusted me to take care of his little brothers. That's why he wasn't as worried. But like, he still left me with his 2 little brothers as we were running away from this dog.
Also, what was the age of, how old was everybody?
So me and the friend, we were about 12, 13. So the little brother, the middle brother was about maybe 8, 9. And the youngest brother was like 6. Just starting elementary school.
And the oldest guy?
The oldest guy. So my friend was like 12, 13, my age.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe still in the age where, people panic and like the unpredictability of the panic, could drive people to whatever,
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. So maybe that is the ultimate lesson, is that we're at that age there where people still don't have all their morals, their ethics, all that like responsibility, that maturity, right? So maybe I am being a little too harsh towards him.
And also, so go back to like the unpredictability of panic, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when you're younger, right? And I do this with my niece and nephew sometimes, right? There's you can kind of manipulate them. There's like predictable ways, like if you want to be like, oh, how's the monster in your in your bedroom, right? Like, that can get them worked up because you know that predictable response there, right?
Yeah.
But then other times kids will do very unpredictable things, right? And I see this right now a lot with my kids that have young children, like toddlers and stuff, right? Where they will say something that is very unpredictable, at least to an adult, where we have these kind of like established norms and ways of saying things. Actually, I'll give you a good example. Somebody told me recently that they were calling their niece, right? And it was the girl who was calling, it was her birthday, right? Not the young child, okay? But then it was also, I think, maybe the dad's birthday, right? So she was saying happy birthday to everybody because she thought it was everybody's birthday. Like she thought today was birthday day, right?
I see.
And so she always said, happy birthday, Lolo,
Yeah.
Happy birthday. Tell him happy birthday too, right? Tell everybody happy birthday.
Yeah. Like had a generalized interpretation of things.
Yeah.
I see. So then the final question, because again, this is a great discussion. If this happened when we were adults, so let's say me and my friend were adults, but his 2 brothers weren't adults yet, they were still in their teens, would it be different? Right?
Right.
So I didn't even think about it until Brantley reminded me that, like at that age, right? But like, so if this happened when we were 18 and the 2 brothers, one was maybe like 15, one was maybe 12 or 11, would this be different? And I mention this because, there's certain people, the way they grow up, and then eventually as adults, they'll carry some of this. Like, I will guarantee you this person I'm talking about, as an adult, he's still kind of like this. I guarantee you. I'm not naming names. So like, was this event that happened when we were teens, was it a predictor, or was it something that could have been prevented if he were raised better? That's too subjective. That's like judgmental. But if he had better influence in his life, or he had different influence in his life, so
Well, I would like to think that nowadays, when we're confronted with a panic situation, I think we've either gone through the mental exercises enough that we kind of know the right behavior, right? So, for example, if you were walking with your girlfriend and there was like a sketchy guy on the street, right, you would probably kind of know what to do, right? Or another example is, we all drive a lot, right? And so if somebody does something crazy on the road, you kind of have a little bit more instinctual of a way to react. I mean, driving's not a natural activity, right? But we've done it so much, and we've thought about all these situations, we've had all these close calls, that you kind of know instinctually, okay, I need to swerve out of the way, but not hit another car, not hit a pedestrian, not drive off a cliff, right? Like you've kind of internalized all those things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think as adults, I think those are like muscles that we build.
Yeah, exactly. As adults, hopefully, we've had 1 or 2 experiences, at least, to kind of learn to act better, or we have enough stories from other people or guidance from other people to be like, okay, this is how I'm going to act. But ultimately, you have to see how you act when you're put to the test, right? Put to the stress. That's the unfortunate thing. Part of this discussion that Brantley and I were having was the difference between Gen Z and Gen Y, right? Like me and him are Gen Y, and Gen Z, it seems like just socially they're different. I'm not saying that's wrong. It is they're different than like every generation before them.
Totally.
Because my argument was, shouldn't Gen Z be more socially fluid? Because like they had all the resources to like look up stuff. They had all their smartphones to be able to interact with people in Asia when they were like 9. But Brantley was like, that's different than like having the resources there versus the practice.
Right. Now, I did read, and this was a number of years ago, and I don't know how true this is, but I read that as texting became really popular, apparently people became a little bit better writers, right?
I
because
believe that.
You write more, you become a better writer, even if it's not great writing, right?
Yeah.
And so as people have texted more, in theory, we've gotten to be a little bit better writers. Personally, would I rather have someone be a better communicator in person, right? Because that's the majority of our interactions, right? Like even if you have a white collar job, you're working at a computer, you're sending emails and Slack messages all day. I still think it's more important to have effective in-person communication. Yeah. Because also when the stakes are high, what do? You go for an in-person meeting. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I would say one in-person meeting is worth, let's say, like 10 times the text messages or whatever.
Totally. The richness of the medium, right? So it goes in-person, I guess, video call, phone call, email, Slack message, text message.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
Now, on that note, an experiment I've thought about doing. So I'm trying to do more life experiments, right? Because, okay, at the beginning of every new year, we're still kind of at the beginning of the new year, right? People love to establish these resolutions, right? But then if you're doing a resolution, right, especially if it's something that takes up some amount of time, right? I mean, your life's already pretty busy, right? You generally have to cut some stuff, right? Yeah. And so it's hard to make a resolution that you're going to stick with forever.
Yeah.
And so then a lot of times people feel like they failed on their resolution because they stick with, going to the gym for 4 months and then they slack off, right? And so what I think is a better thing to do is to give yourself an invitation, or like to do different trials, right? Where you try something out for a week. You can do almost anything for a week, right? Yeah. Or 2 weeks or a month or maybe even a few months, right? So then you've gotten the experience of doing that thing. You've tried it on to see if it works for you. And then you can potentially make a better decision. Remember earlier we were talking about Bayesian thinking, right?
Yeah.
You've gained some more information about that activity, and now you can decide whether or not you want to incorporate that into life.
I see.
So something I've considered doing, and honestly, as I'm saying this, I think the reason I haven't done it is because I told myself to do it for a month, which a month is too long, but is to only call people for a month, to not text people, right? Unless maybe again, and I think it's important to be flexible with these trials or resolutions or whatever you're doing, right? So maybe it's not call for everything. If it's an extremely logistical thing like meet at 5:30, maybe that's okay. Yeah. But for almost everything else, to call people, and even if somebody texts you, call them back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could be a fun experiment.
What I like about what Brantley said is that the whole idea of resolutions, right? There's a lot of reasons why people fail at them, but I like the idea of, okay, maybe that first month you try a bunch of things. So instead of resolve to do one thing, just be like, I'll have an open mind this first month, try a bunch of things. And, if I get more data on a bunch of things I've always wanted to try, then I will hopefully stick to one thing, right? I guess that's the mentality. The other thing I want to say about resolutions, like, Brantley knew me before I started playing chess, and he knew me after I started playing chess. I did not pick up chess during the beginning of the year. I picked up chess during the end of the year. So maybe a way to start a resolution is don't start it when other people do it. You have to find it in yourself. So like if you find yourself wanting to do something in July, do it in July. Don't wait until next January. In my case, that November, I accidentally signed up for chess.com. Fuck you, chess.com. But like I accidentally signed up for a premium membership. I'm like, oh, sorry, I spit on you. That's but like, I'm like, well, I guess I'm learning then, right? So like sometimes so not just when you find inspiration, but if there's a happy accident, sometimes happy accidents are the best times for things to happen.
100%. And bird in hand is worth two in the bush. I don't know. Like if you have the motivation right now, just do it right now. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can't do everything all at once, but if there's some small step you can take towards doing something, whether it be a new habit that you want to try and pick up or a hobby you want to try or something else, just go ahead and do it now, right? Because I don't know if you ever read that book, Getting Things Done by David Allen.
I think I've heard of
It's
it.
really popular, like personal productivity book. And one of the things he talks a lot about is there's a lot of mental load to remembering to do something.
Yeah.
And so, he has like a 2-minute or 5-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just go ahead and do it now. And I think that's a useful approach in general, but I also think even for larger things, right? What is a larger project except a lot of like really small projects?
Yes.
And so something that I could always do better about is breaking big problems down into smaller chunks that are very doable.
Yeah.
And so if you can, so I think a useful framework there is to think about what is for whatever this thing that I'm thinking about trying, right? Like playing chess. Okay, what's the thing I can do right now that takes 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and sign up for a chess.com account or membership or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or let's just play one speed game right now. You know? I feel like sometimes there's just a general resistance to doing that because of inertia or whatever else. But not having to have that mental overhead about doing the thing later is, I think it's pretty important.
Yeah. I've talked about this before many years ago on this channel, but one of the things I always tell people is, how can you really break it down? Like break it down to the point where you think that you're like almost like dumbing it down for yourself. Totally. So like if you're procrastinating, just think about it once in a while. That's the first step, right? Think about it first.
Yep.
Okay, then it's like maybe load it up on your computer if the activity is a computer task. I mean, don't do it, but just like think that that's breaking it down, right? It's breaking it down to the first initial steps.
Totally.
And then like, okay, maybe just do one little thing, exactly like Brantley said. A lot of you know, I took a tax class, right? Like for those of you procrastinating on your taxes, like maybe don't do your entire tax return in one sitting, but like, okay, like get one of your W-2s or one of your 1099s like saved, backed up. Okay, that's one thing, right? And then if you have multiple W-2s or multiple 1099s, get it all saved in the next sitting or something like that. Procrastination, it's almost like avoiding thinking about it, right? So like just think about it. Like next time you want to think about taxes, give yourself like 2 more seconds to think about it than usual. You know, like you break it down that way.
Yep. And also a lot of times you find, and I've read about this. This personally happens to me. I'm sure it happens to you, right? Once you start doing something, then you're like, oh, this actually isn't that hard, and then you can spend 30 minutes or an hour on it. It's just that activation energy to get started is oftentimes quite high.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, I think we explored a lot today. The reason I wanted to bring him on, he's been on some of my other channels, but the reason I want to bring him on here is because he likes to think and he's a smart guy. And so if you guys want more of these talks with Jerry and Brantley, let me know. It started with a story I've wanted to get off my chest, and look where we went.
Yeah.
So.